Mic check, 1, 2. Mic check. Microphone check. Mic check, 1, 2, 3, 4. Washington Park Senior Center. Microphone check. 1, 2. Hey, we used a splitter. Are you still getting a signal?
Yeah.
Check, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
So all the audio is going to come through here. That's
Yes.
good. Okay, good.
I know where you're going, yeah.
Can I just move this like
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
corner
yeah.
and then kind of like stuff this
Yep.
right here?
There you go.
That's perfect.
Do you know if it's set to a line or a mic output on your?
Whatever he's got is working. It should be line.
Okay.
Check, 1, 2. Check, 1, 2. What does he get? Check, 1, 2. Check, 1, 2.
It's just coming in a little hot on mine.
Check, 1, 2. Check, 1, 2. Mic check. 3, 4. Mic check. Washington Park.
I've got the
Testing, 1, 2.
I don't know what you just said. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Washington Park Senior Center. We're going to get started. This mic is going a little in and out. I'm not. Let's try this one. As the supervisor for Milwaukee County District 15, it's my pleasure to welcome you all to Washington Park Senior Center. My name is Sky Capriolo. Oh, well, thank you. I didn't pay anybody, I promise. Tonight we come here in the spirit of collaboration, respect, and the willingness to learn, listen, and discuss. Toward the end, after all the presentations, I will be leading a question and answer session. So if you do have questions that you want to ask, we have a table over in the corner there where you can write down your name and your question, and we will get to as many as we can at the end of the evening. All right, I'd like to now introduce my colleague to the west. He is the organizer of tonight's event and just really, truly an all-around great guy, and I'm very happy to be on the board with him. I'd like to introduce Supervisor Sean Rolland.
Thank you, Sky. All right, good evening, everyone. Good evening. It is 58 degrees and sunny in February. Woo! But you have all chose to be here with us. Of all of us here on the stage, we just cannot thank you enough for taking an interest. Before we get too far into this, I want to take a moment to wish everyone a very happy Val Phillips Day. The Milwaukee County Board decided that today, Val Phillips' birthday, should be Val Phillips Day in Milwaukee County. She was the very first black woman to graduate from UW Law School, the first woman or African American on the Milwaukee Common Council, first female judge in Milwaukee County, the first black judge in Wisconsin, and the first black person elected statewide as Secretary of State. Those are incredible accomplishments, and again, just a great reminder of her life and the trails that she blazed. I also want to take a second to thank all of the Senior Center staff for hosting us. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all the chairs, the setup. Thank you to my legislative assistant extraordinaire, James, who continues to set up chairs for people. Thank you, James. And thank you to every subject matter expert joining us here tonight. Everybody up here at the table doesn't always agree about everything. That may come as a surprise, right? But sometimes we just agree about things, and we don't always sit together in rooms like this, but every one of us up here believes in the right to protest and in keeping people safe. Every single one of us. So thank you all for being here. And the fact that we're here tonight to talk about the rights of protesters says something powerful about who we are and what we believe in. At the heart of our democracy is the First Amendment of the Constitution. Fun fact, the First Amendment was written by the father of the Constitution, James Madison, who is the namesake of our capital city. So if you didn't learn anything today, now you know that. What's interesting and funny to me is that James Madison did not think the First Amendment was initially necessary. He thought it was obvious to everyone, but then after the Constitution was ratified, he probably expected everybody to thank him for setting up 3 branches of government and pat him on the back, and instead what he heard from Americans all over was the Constitution didn't go far enough to protect people from the tyranny that they had just experienced. So Madison listened to the people, and the Bill of Rights was born. The First Amendment protects freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, the right to petition the government for redress of grievances. These are not abstract legal concepts. These are guarantees that belong to every single one of us. They guarantee that anyone has the right to stand in a public square, march down a street, hold a sign, chant, speak, pray, kneel, and demand change whenever they feel unheard, overlooked, or mistreated. Protests have helped our nation move forward from the civil rights movement, women's suffrage, labor protections, disability rights, immigrant rights. None of this progress arrived quietly, but it arrived because ordinary people exercised their constitutional rights and insisted that their voices matter. This is not a partisan topic, it is a patriotic topic. So it is important to note that these rights come with responsibilities, and tonight it's all about education and empowerment. So let's get started. I am grateful to introduce our first speaker. She is the 66th Sheriff of Milwaukee County, the first female sheriff in the history of the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office, and the first African-American female sheriff in the state of Wisconsin. Let's give a warm welcome to Sheriff Danita Ball.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for being here. I would just want to thank the for organizing this event. As it was stated, we do have a common ground. We do believe in the rights of others, and so we're going to give a presentation, be available for questions. My Inspector Doug Holton of the Patrol Division is going to do the presentation. I'll be available to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Inspector Doug Holton with the Sheriff's Office. I oversee our Services Bureau, Airport and Patrol Divisions. Did create a few through. The first slide here, this presentation reflects our policies and guidance by our office. It is intended to help residents understand their rights and what to expect when engaging in protected activities. Whoops, sorry about that. I will note that all the following policies or all the following slides are based on policies, are based on our Sheriff's Office policies. Our policies are available on our website, mkesheriff.org. They're available for you to download, print, to keep, whatever. Every one of our policies, every single one of them. Specifically, our assembly policy that we'll kind of go over here. And I'm having kind of trouble reading that in front here. Yeah, if you're able to maybe make it a little. Of course, all our policies are based on federal law, state law, local ordinances, and best practices. So the first one is that peaceful protest is a protected right. As the supervisor just said, it is your protective right. You have the right to gather, march, demonstrate, and express your views in public spaces such as sidewalks, parks, and plazas, so long as the activity remains peaceful and does not violate the law. That's specifically in our policy. It is a reflection, again, of federal and state law and your rights as a citizen. Permits are not always required. This is more of a parks issue. Many spontaneous or small assemblies do not require a permit. A permit may be required for larger events, amplified sound, and activities that significantly impact traffic. Sorry, this thing's kind of going on and off. We do not require permits through the Sheriff's Office. You get them through the Parks Department if the assembly, if the protest, if the event is at a county park. We highly recommend you get a permit, mostly if you're using amplified sound and it's something that may affect traffic. But we do not issue the permits. We generally don't get involved in that process. Law enforcement's role is public safety. It's not suppression of speech. Our responsibility is to maintain order for First Amendment rights. We will not take action or fail to take action based on the opinions being expressed. Again, that is specifically in our policy. Orders must be lawful and clear. So if we issue an order such as to disperse, it has to be lawful, it has to be communicated clearly, and we need to provide reasonable time to comply. That's our policy, that's also state law. So if we have an issue where we feel public safety is being endangered, a event, whether it's a protest or just a large event, we typically will go to the event organizers first, which usually we have kind of contacts with them just to make sure everything's going okay, going well. Call them, communicate with them to say we're having an issue with something, and that we believe this assembly is becoming unlawful. We've done many, there's been many protests lately. We have not had to do that. We've not had to really come close to that. So that's a good thing. But again, that is in our policy. Any failure of that, we do have, again, this is based on state statute. We would need to communicate that with the group and give the group a reasonable time to disperse on their own. Any use of force, sorry, someone's in the way. Any use of force must be reasonable, necessary, and proportionate to the situation. Again, that's coming right from our own policy. Our use of force policy is also online. So what to expect from us during a protest? We do not police based on viewpoint. Viewpoint is irrelevant to us because it's your right to have any viewpoint you want. Enforcement decisions are based on maintaining public safety and preserving order. not the cause or message being expressed. Again, the message being expressed is irrelevant to us. We are neutral there. We are there to provide public safety. Crowd control measures are situational. Situational enforcement action is only used when necessary to address safety risk, unlawful behavior, or emergencies. That is it. Journalists and legal observers are recognized. We certainly know that there are legal observers and journalists at these events. Members of the press and legal observers have every right to observe and document events as long as they're taking reasonable safety measures to make sure that they don't get involved. If something happens, they don't get themselves hurt, things like that. Immigration enforcement is the responsibility of the federal government, not the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office. We have nothing to do with immigration enforcement. We do not enforce civil immigration law. The Sheriff's Office does not stop, question, or detain individuals slowly to determine immigration status. And I can tell you, especially with everything going on lately, we have expressed this, especially in our roll calls, that is our policy. That is not what we do. And we have continued to stress that to our frontline folks. Immigration detainers are limited. Individuals are not held past their lawful release time based solely on a civil immigration detainer without proper judicial authority. We need a warrant signed by a judge. So again, that's our last slide. The summary is just informational. It just reflects our policy and our guidance. It does not replace legal advice. We do not give legal advice. If you believe your rights were violated, you certainly can contact a legal advocacy organization for assistance. And again, like I said, all our policies are available online on our website, mkesheriff.org. Otherwise, that is it from the Sheriff's Office here.
All right, thank you very much. All right, our next presenter probably needs no introduction, but we'll do it anyway. He is the former Director of Community Engagement for the ACLU of Wisconsin. He is the current Executive Director of Milwaukee Turners, and he is just announced as one of the Milwaukee Business Journal's 2026 Power Players of the Year. Let's give a warm welcome to Emilio Dottore.
Thank you, Supervisor. Look at this. I even have a clicky. See, that's what you get when you get a good budget. So a few things. Before I begin, thank you all for attending. It's my second delightful panel with some of these people today. The information I'm about to share and the information on the slide is also for free on the MilwaukeeTurners.org website. Like Frank Zeidler said, produced for use, not for profit. On the table over there are other forms, and so know your rights during an immigration encounter or law enforcement encounter, or know your rights for protesters are on these lovely little cards, and you can fold them up and stick them in your wallet. So even though I'm a former teacher, you don't have to take notes today. It's all written down for you. And it's also these trainings that you're going to see from the Turners are in English and in Spanish on our website. And the other trainings that we have, what to do during an ICE encounter, link to all the resources that any immigrant would need for any visa or for any appeal. And the resources are in some 30 different languages linked there. So you can download it for free and share it. And that's very important. You need to take this information and bring it to your community, because in addition to our county, there are 71 additional counties in the state where people will need this information. These slides are a little bit far from just the demonstration component of this and the rights of demonstrators. This is very important, and this is what to do if ICE is encountering you in the street, in a place of worship, or in a facility like this or your business. We do specific trainings on all of those topics, and again, if you're interested, you can just go to the Milwaukee Turners website. We're happy to come out for either a bottle of water or a cup of coffee. It's that cheap, but it has to be good coffee. So let's dispel some myths, and we give examples of all of these on our websites. To enter private premises, your business, your house, your apartment, you're a renter, ICE agents need a signed judicial warrant. It has to be signed by a judge. We give examples of what those look like on our website, so you can take a look at it. They will frequently present what they call an administrative warrant, which, if anybody speaks Yiddish, the word for that is fakakta. If you speak Italian, it's fugazi. In English, it's a bootleg warrant, okay? It's like an Office Depot warrant where, you know, if the county supervisor, what's the name of the gentleman who helped set up chairs? James. The county supervisor goes to Office Depot, gets some nice software, and writes a warrant giving James permission to come into my house to rearrange my furniture. That's not valid. It looks fancy, but it's not real. I can say no. You can say no if you're presented with an administrative warrant. Again, that's not needed for detainers or talking to someone on the street. That's just the vampire rule. You have to give the vampire permission to come into your house. If you don't do that, they can't come in. If they have a signed judicial warrant, they can come in. If you're in a facility that is like this facility, which has spaces that are open to the public, and they're open to the public during set hours, then ICE agents can go into those spaces. And you have to know not to say anything and not to put your hands on them if they're going into an area which you clearly mark. I have examples of signs there that you may keep, which say private, no entry without a warrant, and it says the same thing in Spanish. And why is this important? Because you have to mark your area. So in a church or a mosque or a temple, you may have public places and private places. You can mark it off even with a little plastic chain and say that the space is private so that people can't enter. If they do, then you may record them because you are legally allowed to record law enforcement during all interactions. They may lie to you and say you're not, and you should say, shame on you for lying to me. But you should not put your hands on the officers, but document this. One other little tidbit. You lovely humans are going to be the first people to read this draft, which is on the table. And what this is, and we'll share it with our other organizations, it's what you can do in addition to volunteering to be a legal observer or a verifier to put pressure on law enforcement or elected officials to do important things to protect our community. Some of those important things are to encourage the Attorney General to set up a statewide portal so that anybody who is witnessing or viewing unlawful ICE violence or attacks or things that you think might be can upload and share your testimony as well as this video footage so that the Attorney General can hold this. This will take the burden off local law enforcement for having to navigate these things, and you may not know which law enforcement or local entity should have this. 5 other states have this, as well as certain cities. This is an important protection and precaution for all of us that'll take the burden off some 400 police departments in the state and 72 sheriff's departments. And I don't know all those people. I don't know what they're going to do with the sensitive data. I don't know if it'll see the light of day. And so you want to make sure that it's safe and guarded in a repository like our state government. That's very important, and the context for that are here too, as well as other important things. It also talks about some of the other guidelines, but you can read that at your leisure. What you need to know is you want to prepare ahead of time. If you're seeing ICE outside of your facility or your building or your school, or you're doing a demonstration, they show up, you should not be blindsided. We are now afforded the gift of not having to be reactive like Chicago and Los Angeles and Minneapolis. So you should plan and prepare. You should work with communities and identify an attorney work group. You should reach out to groups like Voces de la Frontera and only use their 1-800 hotline if you suspect or see ICE. And if you see or suspect you see ICE, please don't go sharing that in social media. Please allow their verifiers to verify that you are seeing that really is ICE. Because to share rumors like that does a gross disservice and creates violence and certainly interacts adversely with the immigrant community and all the multi-status families that are in our community. You may think you're being helpful, but instead you're encouraging people not to go to work, not to go to court, not to share all the important things and take advantage of their lives. We heard this morning from DA Kent Lovern that fewer people are attending courts now because of the fear from ICE. So imagine if you need somebody to to come forward and do the important things that they have to. Maybe they're a witness in a theft at your house. Maybe they're just paying some sort of ticket. They're not doing that now because of the unbridled terror that has been unleashed by the federal government. So prepare for that. Contact immigration attorneys ahead of time. We listed about 80 decent pro bono ones, and work with people to create a plan ahead of time. So let's talk a little about what that might look like. The most important thing any of you can do, and I'm sure the folks up here will agree, is you need to remain calm. People are looking for you to help ground them in what is a terrible and unexpected time in our country. And for some folks, they may have been exposed to this terror for years based on the amount of melanin in their skin and where they live. But for other folks, this is a very new and unexpected thing. And so what you need to do is stay calm. If you're helping other individuals who are encountering ICE agents or et cetera, you want to stay calm for them. You also want to remember your rights. You do not have to open the door for ICE agents when they show up at your house. They need to have a signed warrant, and they can slide that warrant under the door or hold it up to your peephole, and you can take a copy and send it. If you use the same alphabet we do, that's great. If you can't read or write because you only know Cyrillic or Amharic or Arabic or Hmong, and these aren't necessarily alphabets and letters you're familiar with seeing, or Laotian, which is a lovely script, then you need to also make sure that the individuals take a picture of the warrant that they think is a warrant and share that. Because it could be a deportation order, which is an I-205 form, and they could convince you to sign that because law enforcement is allowed to lie to you and you're not allowed to lie to law enforcement. Then they could convince you because they have a native speaker, as we've seen, pretending and saying that the English speaker that they're with is just being a jerk, just sign this paperwork so they can go, and instead you've signed an I-205 deportation order for yourself. You've self-deported. You don't have to say anything to law enforcement. You don't have to say anything to ICE. You don't have to self-incriminate. You do not have to present ID or paperwork unless, of course, you're in the street and they ask you and there's a reasonable suspicion for them to do this. And you should have your ICE phone number saved in the phone to call automatically. If you're like me, I don't remember people's first and last names. I may not remember Voces La Frontera. I may not speak Spanish. So you can do like I do. I have the UPS guy's phone number in here is UPS Tony. And there's Water Guy Jim. This could be ICE number or ICE hotline, whatever you do so you remember when you're panicking. Because when you're in a demonstration or you're in a protest or when ICE shows up, your body is going to make chemicals that it doesn't ordinarily do. And you're going to be producing cortisol and adrenaline, and you're going to act irrationally. You're going to want to hold your hands in front of you calmly like this to communicate with them so they don't think or accuse you of reaching for a weapon or you're reaching for your wallet proactively or any other thing because you want to leave that situation alive. You don't want to lie to an ICE agent. Especially if you're an immigrant or you're with other immigrant individuals, it's better to say nothing. Remember, they're using anything as a deportable excuse, and you'll hear people complaining, especially on social media, saying things like, you know, it's a federal misdemeanor. Yes, a federal misdemeanor, just like getting an edible from Chicago or using an unauthorized picture of Smokey the Bear. Using an unauthorized picture of Smokey the Bear is a federal misdemeanor. Look it up. How ridiculous is that? Did you guys know that was a federal misdemeanor? Don't give false documents. It's a crime, and it's a deportable offense if you're an immigrant. So if you're in a demonstration or you're worried about getting picked up and swept up, don't do that. If you want to exercise your privilege, then I encourage all allies who have more strength in the fact that they are a natural-born citizen here to take advantage of that and to help verify and to help bear witness and to help document these things and to help shout on behalf of those who may be deported or arrested behind this for doing those types of things, and share this information with other folks. If you're renting an apartment and other people let them come into the apartment when you're not there, that counts. Okay, it doesn't matter who lets ICE agents into your business or your house. You have to assert your authority. If you run an establishment or business, you want to do the training ahead of time, letting folks know that you can kick ICE agents out. You can throw them out of your bar. You can throw them out of your restaurant. You don't have to rent rooms to them. All of that is legal. And it's important to know that because it's a very scary thing And it's a very scary time we're living in right now, when ordinary human beings have to do the brave and the bold thing because our democracy is in jeopardy. Boop. Everybody, regardless of what Facebook trolls say, is protected by the lovely words that County Supervisor Rowland read before. Every visitor to this country is protected by the Bill of Rights. And we are all entitled to due process and to be protected from unreasonable searches and seizures under the Fourth Amendment. Just know that because law enforcement is allowed to lie to you, ICE agents may entice you to come out and say, hey, your neighbor just got robbed, I need you to come check this out, or I believe you're the victim of a scam, and I need you to verify that your identity wasn't stolen. Our workshops over there give exact examples that you can take a look at and read things that have been used in multiple languages so you can train other people up on this. That's very important to take a look at, because you don't want to, out of the kindness of your heart, go to do something good for your neighbor and then get in trouble. And remember, the bulk of the people that have been detained and deported, and the courts, Reuters just reported this 2 days ago, 4,400 people were detained illegally by ICE. So the narrative that we are hearing from the federal government is a lie. They are arresting citizens, they are arresting Native Americans, they are arresting people who are demonstrating, who are walking. You can see on video a 15-year-old being pistol whipped even after he stopped and turned around. This is what's happening. And this is why if you do see ICE agents, or they come to your abode or your place of work, or you see them demonstrating, call to have it verified. And if they come to your place of business and they're not identifying themselves, and they are pretending to be sheriffs, and they're pretending to be police officers, and they're wearing some sort of like Menards discount rack clothing with a police vest, call local law enforcement. You don't know who those people are, and if they're not sharing ID, treat it as an active shooter scenario, lock your business down, and call law enforcement to come and say, there's 3 armed men outside, they're wearing masks, I don't know who they are. That's the facts. You don't know who they are, especially if they didn't identify themselves. And there's just 2 last quick slides. You need to prepare for your family. So if you're going to demonstrate, if you're going to carry on with your life, you need all sorts of things. You need, if you're an immigrant, you need your ID. You need your A number. You need whatever IDs show that you're from this area, to show that you have a proof of residency here for 2 years. To create the forms that will give guardianship to another individual. Say you're detained, who's going to pick up your kids from school? Who's going to bring Abuela her medicine? Who's going to water your plants or let your dogs out? These are all complicated things which are almost akin to us thinking of our mortality. And, you know, we should have wills, we should determine these things. We're asking everyone that's an immigrant in this community now to take a hard look at these serious questions, and all the links to these forms are also on our website. DHS.gov provides these links for free, how you can fill out a guardian ad litem or get any of these other forms. You do not have to pay some attorney $500. You can just fill this stuff out and submit it. Who's going to give permission to your friend or trusted person to pick up your medicine from Walgreens? All of these are things that you have to think about ahead of time. Who's going to have access to your finances, and then who's going to contact that attorney? And you make a copy of these books, and you leave a copy with a trusted person, like I would leave a copy with my friend, Supervisor Caroline Gomez-Tom, so that if I'm detained, she's got the binder with all my info, and she knows what to do, and it's go time. This is a continuation, and we're not going to go through all of this. All of that is written down. You don't have to copy those notes. They're all on MilwaukeeTurners.org. If you go to resources or training, it's all written there. And these are just slides from a much longer training which goes through what you need to prepare your family from the inevitability of an ICE raid. There's separate trainings. Remember, you don't have to let them in. If you run the business, you can throw them out. If it's a mixed-use place like a library, which might be open to the public but has private rooms, you need to label the private rooms so that they have to present a signed judicial warrant. You can invite people to safe areas. So for example, if there's a waiting room, you can decide to take everybody in for triage elsewhere and then close and lock that place and then call other individuals so that can all be sorted out. And last little bits of information. If you want specific information that you can carry with you that cover what your rights are during an ICE encounter, it's the green card. Your rights during a protest is the blue card, is the purple card rather. Your rights if you're stopped by law enforcement in the street or in a car is the other card. Those rights align to all interactions with all law enforcement, whether it's ICE, sheriff, state trooper, or city police. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope you guys are learning. Hope you guys are enjoying the presentations. We're going to go a little bit out of order because of some scheduling conflicts. So what I want to first do is just acknowledge several of the other folks who are up here. From the ACLU of Wisconsin Director of Advocacy, Amanda Merkway. Thank you for being here. Then also from the Legal Aid Society of Milwaukee, Executive Director Colleen Foley. And as we head into our Q&A, which is the adjustment to our schedule we're going to make here, I want to acknowledge and introduce a special guest from the Milwaukee Police Department. He's been with the MPD since 1996. By my math, that is 30 years. That is a long time. Thank you for that period of service. For over 5 years, he's served as the acting chief and chief of the Milwaukee Police Department, Chief Jeffrey Norman. Thank you for being here. So to shift, we're going to move into a Q&A section on specifically some questions that we've received that are related to law enforcement or that are specific to law enforcement. So I'm going to pass the microphone to Supervisor Capriello and take it from here.
All right, I'm going to come over this way since our law enforcement people are over here, and we're going to share a microphone. All right, we have several questions that have come in. One of them is, how will citizens be notified if a surge of ICE agents are deployed in Milwaukee or Southwest Wisconsin? That's probably maybe not something that you all can answer. I'm not sure. Will you know if there is a surge of ICE agents that make it here?
So first, I'd like to start by thanking Supervisor Rowland and the other supervisors and the guests here for allowing us to be part of this conversation. And thank you all for being here to have this conversation. It's important to be able to understand how to navigate this very challenging and very unprecedented times. And we're always interested in finding out information from you about what your concerns are and also how we can work with you all. Just to level set the conversation first, we have no known surge information that is coming this way. I'd like to level set that conversation by that. Not saying it can't happen, but there is no known to our department, and I don't speak for the county sheriff, but to the city in regards to any particular surge. But it is important to be prepared and understand how to navigate this. The challenge is that as we are enjoying very good relationships with local federal agencies here, we do know that a lot of strategies are driven from DC and that we're not aware of any particular communication. What I hear from other colleagues, I'm part of Major City Chiefs, that there is really no or very little information about a particular surge coming your way, which is a challenge in regards to how to deal with or navigate that particular type of situation. So for us, I don't know how anybody else was notified in heads up, but we're always trying to have conversations, be able to find out who are the individuals that could be points of contact from the federal agencies, but unfortunately there is not anything that I know of that would be a heads up.
Thank you. And I would just like to add, in normal times, we would be notified, but as we know that we're in unprecedented times, and when I've talked to my colleagues across the country, they were not notified. They just showed up, and then everybody found out at the same time. But as Chief Norman stated, we do have good relationships with our federal partners, and so I'm hopeful and prayerful that if something like this does occur, we will have an inkling ahead of time so that we can make proper notifications and prepare. Thank you.
Well, we're here talking about safe protesting, so this question goes to that. If there's a protest and your people are there as well because you're there to help keep the peace, things like that, if you see federal law enforcement breaking the law or violating the rights of protesters, what is it that you can do? What is it that you will do? Have you had this discussion with your departments?
So that's always a concern in regards to how to navigate some of these unprecedented times. We do have an ongoing relationship with a lot of the protest activity within the community. I believe that we have a pretty long-standing track record of being able to interact, points of contact within our department, points of contact with those who are in the protest activity. Even when things are changed on the fly, as protests may be, we have been adjustable and understand that there is the, again, protection of your First Amendment rights, peaceful protest, and really trying to have a light footprint. I know that there are changes in dynamics in regards to what that particular type of situation may be with federal officers there. We will try to have as much as, again, information in regards to who are those points of contact. I know that we have made a very good point of working with a lot of different community groups of ensuring that we have identification of who Milwaukee police officers are. I know that we did a couple of different videos and notifications. But we also are, again, any type of engagement of police activity, we do have body-worn cameras on ourselves. So there is a part of that understanding we need to, keep, our recording on and being engaged. But we are here to protect everybody, and we try to find ways to, again, bring some level of, order and peace, but it definitely is a difficult situation. I've seen other examples in other cities, and that dealing with the resource, I mean, there's only so many police officers in the Milwaukee Police Department. We all know that we have staffing issues, so dealing with the dynamics of what a potential surge could be a challenge in regards to how to navigate that, but we're willing to work. I know I have a good working relationship with the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office, a good working relationship with our city leaders. We would stand up of EOC, our Emergency Operations Center, to make sure that there is a communication between all of our different partners and be able to work out, okay, what are the next steps, what are the next actions that need to be taken, depending on what's going on.
And I would definitely say that we would look at it on a case-by-case basis. As you know, not only does law enforcement have body-worn cameras, but you have the ability to record too with your cell phones. A lot of us don't go anywhere without our cell phones. And so I would encourage you to document what's going on if something does occur, so that you can use that information at a later time to submit to the proper authorities, so that whatever your concerns are, that they can be addressed. But as was stated, our goal is to make sure that everyone, the safety of everyone that's there. And so we would do that to the best of our abilities. Thank you.
Let me follow up real quickly. Can you arrest federal agents? Will you arrest federal agents if you see them breaking the law?
So no one's above the law. I will say this, even I can be arrested. So there is no off limits in regards to being arrested. But as I would say to myself, if you're going to arrest me, you better know what you're arresting me for and understand what that is. And so there is no one who is off limits of being arrested, but we need to make sure that we are using a good, solid legal ground in regards to what we're doing, and that we understand what the nature of the incident is in front of us.
And I would just say that we've had those conversations with our law enforcement partners, and we have not been given a definitive answer. So if that's what you're looking for, we're going to arrest them if they do X, Y, and Z. What we are being told is that to document the information. It depends on what the situation is. If it's so egregious, then that's a different conversation that we're having. But oftentimes it's a violation of your civil liberties. But if it's a case where it's breaking the law, that's a different story. And that's when that evidence, and even when they're violating your civil liberties, that's important as well. But it's important to document. Not only are you documenting, we are documenting as well. And so if you're looking for a definitive answer, we've asked the experts. I've talked to the AG, I've talked to the DA, and so there isn't a scenario that they have given us where they said, yes, under these circumstances, this will happen. And then just look across the country. Look at what happened in the other cities. I didn't see anybody arresting, federal agencies because this is uncharted territory. So let's be frank. And so we want to make sure that we have proper grounds to arrest someone if it does come to that. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. I know this is a tricky situation that we all find ourselves in. If Milwaukee County residents are exercising their First Amendment rights at a protest, is data and footage collected by local law enforcement accessible to federal agencies, either directly? Can they access anything that we have directly, or can they request access to footage? And do either of your departments comply with that?
So I'm a little confused on what footage we're talking about, because I know that at the end of the day, we are there to basically make sure that we are helping keep the peace. We have a very light footprint when it comes to when we're dealing with protest activity. I mean, you can look at the history in regards to we don't have any overwhelming numbers. This is about your activities. And so for us, it's important to respect those First Amendment rights. If we have to engage, we do have body-worn cameras on our officers. No, there is no accessibility from the federal government for these particular type of electronics. This is something where there has to be a written agreement or some type of, again, access, which we don't allow. They don't allow us to have access to their stuff. We have a separation in regards to our respective lines of responsibility. But we really try to be very mindful in regards to how we behave, how we interact, and we have a very light footprint in regards to when we do have these protest activities. We had major protests in the city. I mean, Three Kings, I compared our city to a lot of other cities. We had 8,000 people compared to 1,000 other cities. Very light footprint. And if anything, we always made sure that we were assisting in the, protest routes. And I took a lot of flack in regards to, some of the things that's going on for the city streets and whatnot, but I understand there is a point where you have to give people the space, let them express themselves, and it's important to know the different tracks or stay in your lane, so to speak. So we don't have any particular type of sharing agreement on that.
And I would just say ditto to what Chief Norman has stated. We don't have a sharing agreement with them as far as sharing data as it relates to protests and things like that. But if somebody has a warrant, a subpoena, that's a different story. And so then they would go through open records and things like that. But we don't have a sharing agreement. Thank you.
I want to be respectful. You wanted to comment on that? Let me be respectful of Chief Norman's time real quickly. I think we're running low on time, so let's just go through something that I think will be really useful for all of us. Can you name things that would happen at a protest that would be illegal for protesters? For instance, inciting violence or damaging property. What are things that police could arrest a protester for?
Well, those two things you talked about. Our community wants to be able to respect everybody's space, and the same thing about them. So those are those type of challenges, but we've done very well in the city. I believe that within the 5 years I've been leading the department, we've worked really well in regards to points of contact. Some of my team members are here. I mean, my Chief of Staff, Harold Huff, have kept her cell phone on 24/7 in regards to making sure that there is points of contact. When you have levels of communication, you understand the needs and know how to work in real-time situations. And again, we've been in this place before in regards to dealing with these types of situations. This is not new to us in regards to protest activity. What is new to us is behaviors in regards to how law enforcement is behaving, and that's also unprecedented, you know, and really working. I mean, from the highest level of mayors to chiefs, a lot of this is perplexing to us. This is something that we just never have seen before in regards to behaviors and trying to work out what is the communications, but it's been a challenge. It's been a challenge. I know that there has been, you know, a lot of different outreach, but we will continue to try. We'll continue to, you know, lean into it. I know there's expectations for us to talk to our federal counterparts, but understand this. I have full control over the officers within Milwaukee Police Department. Everybody else is just ask. You know, I mean, look at the highest level in regards to what's going on in politics. Are legislators talking to each other? I mean, this is a small reflection of some of the challenges we're dealing with here. We're dealing with it also within law enforcement. And so as we talk about, well, just go over there and talk to them, I sometimes want to ask somebody, say, show me how that's done. Because I'm seeing some real challenges here, not only in our local area, state area, but also nationally.
And I agree, violent acts, destruction of property will likely get you arrested. But with the sheriff's office, we have a responsibility to the citizens of Milwaukee County, and those who are protesting are part. However, if you go on the expressway, you're not only endangering yourself, but you are putting the motoring public in danger because they do not know that you're there and expect that you're there. And that is a hard line for us. But I agree with what was stated before.
And then just to wrap up real quickly, if someone has a problem, if someone thinks they see ICE, if someone thinks they're being harassed, it's always okay to call out to one of your departments, correct? For help?
So that's always a challenging line. I know that it is important for us to be in the space of identifying those who are wearing masks, who don't have identifying markers in regards to them being truly federal agents. But it is a challenge, again, that we are talking about a authorized through Congress entity where they are able to enforce immigration laws. And so to outright challenge that comes with a lot of risk, because if they're fulfilling that responsibility, we have to be very careful about what that particular type of contact looks like. And so it is important for us to identify to make sure that no one is taking advantage of some of the things that is being shown across the nation in regards to behaviors. But there is a line that we have to be very careful about in regards to any federal agency. This is not just immigration and customs enforcement. ATF, FBI, DEA, all have those federal protections of they are fulfilling that responsibility coming from Congress in regards to their duties. So it's a balancing act. And again, trying to work out just what is the rules of engagement will be helpful for us. But as I'm hearing from across the nation in regards to other respective communities, those particular communications either are non-existent or very strained. But I will continue to outreach, I will continue to engage, I will continue to put forth the effort because you all deserve that particular type of energy and responsibility of trying to make sure, do we understand how to navigate this where there's not the type of conflict or challenges we're seeing in the community across our nation.
And I would just add that if you feel that you're harassed and if you call the police and our law enforcement and we respond, we're going to assess that on a case-by-case basis because you may think that you are being harassed, but that may be law enforcement doing their job. And so that's why it's important to document because you thinking it's harassment may not be to legal authorities. So That's why it is so important. This is why reason why we come and we evaluate it. We talk to the parties involved to find out what's going on. We're not there to jump to conclusions and take sides. We're there to enforce the law and also to keep people safe. And that's what we would do. And oftentimes, to say case by case, but it is, because we have not gone through this before. And so we don't want to violate somebody else's rights because of, something that we haven't experienced before.
Okay, thank you very much. I know we have other presenters, so I think we'll wrap this up. I can speak, hopefully, on behalf of the board, that we really appreciate the law enforcement that came here today. We appreciate your answers and your willingness to be in front of a packed room on a very sensitive subject. So thank you very much.
All right. Let me go back to regularly scheduled programming. I'd like to introduce one of my favorite colleagues on the county board. She is the daughter of working class immigrant parents from Mexico. Today, she is committed to lifting up the community, working in outreach and policy, and building bridges to support working families. Please welcome Supervisor Caroline Gomez-Tom.
Thank you for the kind words. I will take that I'm your favorite to the grave. No. Hello, everyone. I'm Caroline Gomez-Tom. I'm the County Board Supervisor for District 14. I represent the near south side of Milwaukee, which is one of our most robust, immigrant, diverse communities in the entire county, arguably in the entire state of Wisconsin, and I'm proud to represent that area. And what I'm really excited to talk to you about is we've heard a lot of different resources from wonderful groups that have been doing a lot of work to try and keep us safe. And the reality is we all keep each other safe. And to be sure in that safety is we have to have the knowledge and the resources to be able to know our rights. And what we've done is we've built a hub at the county on our county website where folks can go to look at all of these different resources from Voces de la Frontera, from Milwaukee Turners, from ACLU, and many more. And not just local resources, but other statewide resources. Legal services, how to stay prepared if you know families that are concerned about some of the things that Emilio had shared in terms of, if their family is concerned about any risk of deportation, those documents on how to file the paperwork to have someone pick your kid up from school if you were detained, or things like that. And there's other resources in just how to get involved. We're going to be listing trainings there. We're going to be listing other resources because, once again, we keep each other safe. We need to know what resources are available, and we have to do this together. And so that's all I got, but I'm happy to answer any questions, and thank you for all being here.
Thank you very much. Caroline has been a champion on this topic, and a lot of the resources that you're seeing are because she has really pushed. There's lots of people in this effort who are worthy of praise, but Caroline is definitely one of them, so thank you for all you're doing. Next, I'd like to introduce another special guest here. She is a former assistant public defender, but today she serves as the director of advocacy for the ACLU of Wisconsin. And we're very appreciative of her time and attention, so please give a warm welcome to Amanda Merkway.
Thank you so much. I think it's working. For the opportunity to join you this evening. Perfect. My name is Amanda Merkway. I'm here with my colleague, Ryan Cox, who is the legal director of the ACLU of Wisconsin. Happy to answer questions after we kind of review some of the things that the Sheriff's Office talked about regarding the First Amendment, but getting a little bit more into how you can protect yourself with the knowledge of those rights. I'll start by also saying, oh, I'm so sorry. How's this? Also, the lights are like wildly in my eyes, so this is way more comfortable for everybody. So I also want to start by giving a disclaimer. This is not legal advice, but just information about your rights and how to exercise them. And before we kind of get into it, I also want to acknowledge the reality that we are currently living in. I know it's unprecedented times, uncharted territory, but protesters and the press and observers and people just going about their day in so many cities across the country have just been terrorized by federal law enforcement. And so it feels a little absurd to kind of go through, theoretically, these are what your rights are under the Constitution. But we'll talk a little bit about the realities of how those rights have been grossly violated in recent months. In a ruling issued at the end of January, a federal judge wrote, quote, ICE has likely violated more court orders in January 2026 than some federal agencies have violated in their entire existence. So just want to set that context. But under the First Amendment, your rights are the strongest in what are known as traditional public forums. So as the Sheriff's Department described, streets, sidewalks, parks, other public property such as plazas or government buildings, as long as you're not blocking the entrance to that building. When it comes to permits, you don't need a permit to march in the streets or sidewalks if you're not blocking car or pedestrian traffic. But there are circumstances where you do need a permit if you are going to block traffic or close a street, or if you are going to use a sound amplifying device. Also want to note that counter-protesters also enjoy rights protected by the First Amendment, and that law enforcement must treat protesters and counter-protesters equally. And a lot of times, law enforcement are playing that role of trying to prevent antagonistic back and forth between protesters and counter-protesters, but also making sure that folks are within sight and sound of one another. So a topic that we've talked about quite a bit tonight already is taking photos and videos either at a protest or of law enforcement activity. So when you are lawfully present in any public space, you have the right under the First Amendment to take photos or video of anything in plain view, including federal buildings and local, federal, state law enforcement. Stand at a safe distance, try your best not to interfere with what the officers are doing. It is not permitted for law enforcement to confiscate your device or demand a video or photo or make you delete something. They need a warrant in order to get access inside your phone. MPD has a specific standard operating procedure, SOP 755, regarding recording of police activity, and I really appreciate kind of the introduction section to that SOP that states the public, including media representatives, have an unambiguous First Amendment right to record police officers in public spaces as long as their actions do not interfere with an officer's duties or the safety of officers or others. But again, the reality across the country is not so simple. In Los Angeles, in September, a federal court granted a motion for a preliminary injunction in a lawsuit filed by journalists and observers and protesters challenging the violent retaliation by ICE and CBP agents against people for just filming and photographing law enforcement and immigration enforcement activity. And the court said, quote, the avalanche of evidence before the court, along with federal official statements, suggests that federal agents acted pursuant to a common and widespread practice of violating the First Amendment rights of journalists, legal observers, and protesters. The record also suggests that defendant Noem, Kristi Noem was the defendant in the case, ratified defendant's practice of meeting First Amendment protected activities. So it's coming from the top. Like, it is encouraged for officers to blatantly violate the First Amendment rights of observers and protesters and the press. In Portland, there was a similar lawsuit filed in January alleging a retaliatory policy and practice against journalists and protesters, including the unlawful use of force and chemical irritants. Just 2 weeks ago, a federal court granted a temporary restraining order in that case, finding that, quote, several protesters and press have described being directly targeted with force in the head and other areas of the body, despite posing no threat nor creating an obstruction. In Chicago, we saw during Operation Midway Blitz, again, ICE agents violently attacked peaceful, law-abiding protesters with flashbang grenades, tear gas, and pepper balls. Multiple federal judges who heard testimony and received evidence related to the Fed's First Amendment violations in Chicago determined ICE and CBP in their sworn testimony lacked credibility when they were denying responsibility for these blatant violations of the Constitution. And most recently, ACLU's First Amendment lawsuit in Minnesota. In addition to observers and protesters, plaintiffs in the lawsuit included the largest labor union representing journalists and media professionals in North America. Again, this pattern, this practice of retaliation against people for gathering information, for recording, chemical agents, excessive force, unlawful arrest, and surveillance and intimidation were part of that pattern. And that's a sobering thing to kind of hear in every single case, that it is this pattern that is blatantly violating the First Amendment. But it's a reality I think we need to acknowledge when folks are going out to protest, that safety should be your number one priority. I think people have different risk tolerances because of different privileges that people hold. Really recognizing the reality of how this has played out elsewhere is just the number one thing that you should really be thinking about, which is not to discourage you, because I think now more than ever, we all need to be exercising our rights as enumerated by Supervisor Rolland, but that is the reality. A note on protecting your privacy. So one thing that we have seen, well, I guess throughout the history of this country, but especially in significant protest movements in recent years, is all different types of surveillance that is used by local law enforcement, by federal law enforcement, through data that is shared between state, local, federal law enforcement, surveilling First Amendment activity. The Black Lives Matter movement in 2020 was like the most surveilled movement, one of the most surveilled movements in the history of this country. And some of the types of things that law enforcement use to surveil protesters are aerial drone surveillance, something called stingrays or cell site simulators. So it is a device that is kind of like a fake cell phone tower. So your cell phone pings off of this device thinking it's a cell phone tower, but it allows kind of access to information on your kind of who you are, like IP address, or who you are dialing out to, or who is dialing into. Some newer models, it is thought that can get into the contents of communication. And so when you're thinking about how do you protect yourself from either surveillance from the federal government that has been absolutely active in surveilling protesters in recent months, but also from local law enforcement that has deployed a lot of these technologies in recent years here in Milwaukee, both MPD and the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office, where even if MPD is deploying drones, for, as they have said, safety purposes for protests, so that they can monitor, here's the protesters, here's a group of counter protesters. I think when you're thinking about who has access to that data, I don't think it's as simple as we don't have a sharing agreement, or we wouldn't give permission unless there is a subpoena, because the reality is Milwaukee has what's called a fusion center, similar to a joint terrorism task force, which are a series of these kind of mini intelligence hubs, or not mini, but like a mini NSA, but like an intelligence hub, where its premise is the sharing of data between state, local, and federal law enforcement. There is a fusion center in Milwaukee, and there are MPD officers assigned to the fusion unit. So I think certainly there might not be explicit data sharing agreements, but a lot of the surveillance infrastructure that is controlled by either the Sheriff's Department or State Patrol or Milwaukee Police Department, there are avenues for direct access to some of that information. Another example are flock cameras, automatic license plate readers, which is something that I know local law enforcement in Milwaukee has said, we don't have the setting on in our flock system to allow sharing outside of the state of Wisconsin. But that doesn't give me a whole lot of comfort about where that data is going, because a lot of recent investigations have found that federal law enforcement were getting side door access to flock camera information. So every single time a license plate, a car drives by one of these cameras, it's getting the license plate, the make, the model of the car, if there's any details about that car. And so if there is, you think about all the law enforcement agencies in Wisconsin, every municipal law enforcement agency, all of the sheriff's deputies, it just takes one sheriff's deputy somewhere in the state of Wisconsin to provide that side door access to ICE, as has been documented over the last several years through open records requests from the ACLU and others, to really think about, if you are going to a protest, what can you do if that surveillance makes you uncomfortable? I don't know. It would make me very uncomfortable for the feds to know everywhere that I am, the contents of my communication. So a couple things you can do to protect yourself. With your phone, obviously, the best thing I would say to do is to just leave it at home. But if you are not leaving it at home, would turn off all biometric unlock functions. So take the fingerprint and face way to access your phone off just during that protest. Switch your phone to airplane mode, turn off Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, again, thinking about like Stingrays and other surveillance devices that can access non-encrypted communications. Disable, this is just good practice generally, is to do an audit of every single app on your phone. Check to see, are you automatically sharing location information through that app? Because another reality is that local and federal law enforcement agencies, as kind of an end run around the Fourth Amendment, just buy data on the private market from data brokers, and they get that information from all of these apps on our phones that are tracking where we are at all times. Another tip is to communicate with others over encrypted messaging apps like Signal. A reminder that police need a warrant to search your phone. So when you turn off, the face scan in order to get into your phone, it kind of alleviates this risk of law enforcement just, if you are under arrest, holding up the phone to your face and unlocking it. If you have a passcode, they are not able to do that. And also not just giving consent to unlock your phone with a search without a warrant. So turning to interactions with law enforcement, kind of all applies generally, but also in the protest context. I think of kind of a couple categories of interactions, starting with kind of just a contact with law enforcement, a stop, and then an arrest. So I think of, if law enforcement officer, if an ICE agent is coming up to you, asking you questions, in doing that, they're not really exercising power that they have as a law enforcement officer to compel you to stay where you are or to interfere with your freedom of movements. But if they do exercise that power, it becomes a stop under the Fourth Amendment. So a stop is like a brief period where officers can basically kind of restrict your freedom of movement. You don't feel free to go. And they need to have what's called reasonable suspicion or reasonable articulable particularized suspicion that you are involved in criminal activity in order to stop you. Stay calm, but as Emilio mentioned, that's obviously very difficult to do in these really high pressure situations, but it is critical in order for you to stay safe. Make sure you keep your hands visible. Don't resist or obstruct the police, even if you believe that your rights are being violated. In the moment, you won't really know, do they have reasonable suspicion to stop me? So ask. Ask if you are free to leave, and if the officer says yes, then just calmly walk away. You never have to consent to a search of yourself or your belongings. If they have reasonable suspicion that you have a weapon, they're allowed to do a frisk or a pat down outside your clothes, but can't go in your pockets. And then, moving into that third area of if you're arrested. So they need a higher level of evidence of that criminal activity, rising to the level of probable cause in order to detain you for a longer period of time. And if you are under arrest, you have the right to ask why. And then you always have the right to remain silent and the right to ask for a lawyer immediately. Asking for a lawyer doesn't mean you're going to get one immediately. The way that asking for a lawyer really serves as kind of magic words under the Fifth Amendment is if you are in custody of law enforcement and if you are being interrogated, so being asked questions that could elicit an incriminating response. If you say, I want a lawyer, then they have to stop asking you questions. But the best thing is just to be unequivocal. I wish to remain silent. I want a lawyer. So 5 key phrases. Am I free to go? Am I under arrest? I wish to remain silent. I do not consent to a search. I want to speak to a lawyer. So if you can indulge me for a second, turn to a person nearby and ask, am I free to go? Turn to a person next to you and say, am I under arrest? Ask, or say with a period at the end of the sentence, not a question mark, I want to speak to a lawyer. If you say, I want to speak to a lawyer, is not an invocation of that right. I do not consent to a search. And I wish to remain silent. And then you got to stay silent. The number of, body cam footage and squad cam footage of someone saying, they're not being interrogated. They're in custody, but they're not being interrogated. And, maybe they say, maybe I think I want a lawyer. I don't really want to talk. And then they just say a bunch of stuff and it's all admissible because they are not being interrogated. They're volunteering that information. You wish to remain silent, but I need you to actually stay silent then, which is very difficult to do. So appreciate that. I think it's goofy to say that stuff out loud in this room, but really practice it because when you're under that intense moment and you're fight or flight and you can't really handle your emotions. By just practicing saying that every once in a while, it can become second nature so that you don't accidentally say something or consent to something that you didn't mean to. Then finally, this is also touched on by the Sheriff's Office. If during a protest the police issue an order to disperse, it really should be law enforcement's last resort. They can't break up a gathering unless there is a clear and present danger of a riot or disorder or interference with traffic or other immediate threat to public safety. If a dispersal order is issued, they have to provide a reasonable opportunity for someone to comply. And folks have to get kind of clear and detailed notice of a dispersal order. How much time do you have to disperse? What are the consequences for failing to disperse? And how are you supposed to get out of there? Because if you're kettled in there, it's not really allowing you an opportunity to leave. And I think that might be it for, but all this information and a lot of other information about other types of Know Your Rights material in numerous languages is on the ACLU of Wisconsin website. We have some Know Your Rights while protesting cards and some Know Your Rights for immigration circumstances cards on the table, but aclu-wi.org.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, ACLU. Legal Aid, would you like to say anything?
Hey, everybody. Colleen Foley, Legal Aid Society, and I just feel the desire to quote Jesse Jackson in terms of keep hope alive. I'm personally so inspired by all these folks turning out tonight on a, not so cold, dark Tuesday night. And also I take solace in this network of individuals and agencies working together, and I think we all should. So the Legal Aid Society has a small immigration team. There are flyers here. You can go online to access whether you're eligible for our services, legalaidmke.com. We provide a lot of what we do is know your rights trainings, and that is we'll do those one-on-one, we'll do those with different groups, and that will help put in place powers of attorney for finances, healthcare, and also parental delegation. And those are extremely hard conversations, but to be proactive and create a safety plan is really critical. So we have those services. We do some limited crime victim representation, and we have some asylum cases, all of which have become increasingly challenging given the constraints at the national level. I also just want to add that I and tout the training that's available through Milwaukee Turners. As a legal observer, I did it this past Saturday. It was a 2-hour session. It was really terrific. You don't have to be a lawyer to do it. I am a lawyer. You don't have to be a lawyer, but really helps you understand how to do that civic duty, keep yourself safe, make sure that people who are expressing their First Amendment right to protest are being kept safe, and that I know the ACLU mentioned that Signal, that protected cell phone thank you, app will ensure that if you are taking photos and that you can protect those and that they are vetted higher up, because there was a concern expressed by law enforcement and by others here today about who can access information on your phone, and that is a protected way to get that information out there and document it when things go really terribly wrong. So thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. I think listening to everyone today, a takeaway that I got was really from Amanda Markway. If you're going to go to a protest, put your phone on airplane mode. I never would have thought of that, so I appreciate that. One of the questions that I did have from someone is there a way for people to help support the organizations that are up here? So is there a way to help support Legal Aid or ACLU or Turners? I'm going to hand it down. You guys can.
Just again, that legal observer training was terrific and highly recommend that. And if you or your friends or neighbors can use that, the Know Your Rights packet in terms of getting in place powers of attorney, I encourage you to share that information, go on our website, take one of our postcards.
Hi, everybody. I didn't get a chance to talk. I was hoping we would do some FAQ, so I'm happy to answer at least this. My name is Ryan Cox. I'm the legal director at the ACLU of Wisconsin. We do a lot of litigation in both the area of criminal legal reform as well as immigrants' rights. I think if folks are interested in getting involved with us at the ACLU of Wisconsin, there are numerous ways to do that. If you go to aclu-wi.org, which is also printed on our cards over there, if you have a bad memory, you can find the links that say volunteer with us, and that'll get you involved whether you're interested in maybe volunteering with our election protection efforts on the voting rights side, or finding out other ways to send information to us. We have our online legal intake forms through there for anyone who who might be seeking particular legal assistance. We can't always help everybody, but we try to get referrals out to the right folks when we can't. And then particularly coming up, if there were to be a surge here of federal immigration officers in Milwaukee, I think everyone up here will be getting involved, and lots of other organizations, including VOSIS tabling there in the back. And we will certainly be involved and have materials on our website for people to report information, just like our counterparts at the ACLU of Minnesota and the ACLU of Illinois. We would expect kind of litigation against the Department of Homeland Security. So there's at least those things for sure.
Time, talent, treasure, and tacos. You can buy me tacos. Yeah, there's tons of ways to get involved. By the end of March, we will have trained 1,000 legal observers. That's the most we've ever had. Dissent is patriotic. If you want to help us, take to the streets and protest whenever you have that opportunity, because what's happening is wrong and we are being robbed of our democracy, and it is a damn shame. The document I shared, the black and white draft over there, tells you specifically what you can do, contacting which elected officials, which police officers, which police chiefs, and how and what specifically to ask for. Do it. They're tired of hearing us. So make our chorus louder. Dissent is patriotic. And finally, there are many families that need assistance right now that aren't engaged in the community. I encourage you to volunteer tutoring in schools where parents are stressed out and cannot help in multi-status families. You don't have to be bold and brave and radical, but you can support the beloved community by helping prepare the next generation for this. If we heard from people that they're not going to MATC, thank you. I'm son of a public school teacher and a former public school teacher. But do that little bit. You don't have to demonstrate. Help somebody get their maths and reading down so that they replace me and they replace you in a couple of years.
And I think the simplest thing, and I'm with the county, so we're not asking for more tax dollars, promise. But what I will say, I think is the biggest takeaway is, get to know your neighbors. Like, make sure your neighbors are okay. Because there are some folks in the community right now that are not feeling okay, and they're not feeling safe, they're not feeling respected, they're not feeling like they have dignity, because the federal government is saying that they're not worth anything. So knowing that their neighbors care about them is going to go a long way.
We're getting down to the last couple minutes. I do want to recognize one of our colleagues is here, Ann O'Connor, Supervisor for District 1. Am I missing? You should definitely clap for her. She's awesome. Am I missing anyone else elected that's here? We do have a representative from our county executive's office here in the back, so thank you so much for being here as well. We are going to have to put stuff away, but we'll be around, I'm sure, to answer questions if anyone has one, a one-on-one question. Yes? Sure. Is it germane to protesting? Is it about protesting? Okay. Are you okay with that? Should we let her have it? Yeah, I have it, but it didn't say what it was about, so that's why. We'll give you the microphone.
I would think so. Thank you so much for your kindness. I'm not going to take all day. Thank you. My name is Miss Linda. I'm over 74 years old. I am a Negro. My mother's a Negro. Young people don't get offended. My birth certificate says I'm a Negro. My daddy is a Negro, and my mother is Negro. I can track my ancestry back to the slave ships. When you look at Sinners, that is where my parents grew up, if you saw that movie. But I wanted to say the reason I came out today is because I hear a lot about immigrants, children being afraid, black women, immigrant women and family being afraid. I think that black, African American, whatever, he knows, we are afraid as well. This morning when I got up, I saw Alderman Bauer, and he had done something. My grandchildren live in River West. They are African American, Black, Negro, descendant of slaves. My uncle died and lynched in 1968 for my rights. I want you to be aware that when your kids are afraid, mine is too. I have all of in front of me. These are, this is another generation right here, African American descendants of slaves, Negroes. There are two races in this country, that's black and white. I think if you ever need some training, we have PhDs, black people, that could help you with your training. One last thing. I am also an experienced person with the Insurrection Act. I experienced it. You and these protesters are blessed and should be grateful. I'm from Chicago and I experienced it. It ain't nothing nice. And President Trump have shown mercy on what's going on in this country. So I do want to say that. I have some other things I wanted to say, but I'm not going to upset these people. I don't want to get beat up. Here you go, dear. Thank you.
All right, so I know we let the Senior Center folks know that we're holding the space until 7, so we want to make sure that they can get home to their families. But we'll be around. Feel free to grab us. But thank you to all the presenters, all the guests, all the staff. Thank you for being here. Thank you for showing an interest, and have a great evening.